there's been the widening of resentments as we've fallen over ourselves to try and not cause offence. Resentment has grown. And you see, these are the little paradoxes the left hemisphere doesn't understand because it's very simple-minded. We do this, and surely that will help, and it's going in that direction. But it isn't actually. What it's doing is it's having all kinds of other effects that you're not taking into account. And one of the effects is going to be one that nobody will like, which is the sort of what I could call for short the Trump effect. Now, lots of American viewers and listeners don't like me using Trump as an example of somebody who's not too bright. And I think actually it's wrong to use him as an example because I think he probably is perfectly intelligent.
Different kinds of intelligence.
Different kinds of intelligence. But I think that the explanation for how a lot of educated and intelligent people vote for Trump is just that they think that somebody's got to take a stand against the whole culture of political correctness and the distortion of the educational system, the sheer injustice that's meted out to anybody who's white or male. They won't get to university even though they may be the strongest candidate because others have preference. Now, it's extraordinary that people in the name of justice can do that and not expect there to be a strong reaction to it.
It's a misunderstanding or misreading of history as well, because we've been here.
Yes.
The Bolsheviks did similar things.
Yes.
It doesn't end well.
No, it
fosters resentment.
No.
I started doing this podcast, and forgive me everyone who knows this already, but Iain might not know, because I was making I tried to make Louis Theroux kinds of documentaries and things, going to hang out with neo-Nazis or whatever it might be, and all that stuff. And I made some that went to BBC and HBO and stuff like that. And I started getting told that if I was to continue, I would have to be off-screen and to have somebody in my place who's from a minority. And that fostered resentment in me. I was livid. I heard it about 100 times from 100 different production companies. And then to go to my friends, many of whom obviously, studied the humanities at university, those kinds of things, but you can imagine the politics they had. They just said, well, that doesn't happen. Or they just told you that to spare your feelings, maybe because you weren't good. It's like, well, that seems a strange thing to tell me, to spare my feelings. We don't want you on screen because of your skin color and gender, or
Yes.
So, and all it did was foster resentment and push me away from a cause. Another thing is, I used to not be offended. I remember growing up 15 years ago. I have friends who made jokes about me being Jewish, and I understood that they come from a good place. And I'm not so stupid. I guess the right hemisphere could understand, okay, it comes from a good place. This person's married to a Jewish woman, or whatever it might be. Yeah. But now as it becomes so, we're so offended by everything else, if I've got a woke friend who makes a joke like that, I am offended now. Because I go, well, why won't you make those jokes about other minorities? What are you saying about Jews?
Jews, exactly right. And of course, it's visible that certain groups are, as it were, fair game, and Jews seem to be one, and and others are very clearly not. So, what are these double standards? What is this about justice? What is and the thing that is so sad about humour is, first of all, humour doesn't have to be in any sense derogatory, but also when you pull somebody's leg about anything, it's a sign of, it's actually a kind of a bond. It's a way of showing that there's some sort of, we understand one another and we're safe to talk in this way, and you don't think I'm an enemy here, and so it actually helps to heal. Often, being allowed to make a few not Bernard Manning type jokes. I mean, I once thought, what is this Bernard Manning? And I actually clicked on a link to find out what he was like, and I thought he was A, boring, and B, rather disgusting, and not funny. So, but
this is a racist comedian from a few decades back, just for those who don't know.
Yes, a racist comedian. But one should be able to make these sort of jokes. I remember seeing Richard Pryor at Sunset Strip, which is a film of Richard Pryor on stage, and one of the funniest things he did was a sketch of a Chinese waiter with a stutter. Now, nowadays, I don't know where that would go, but it didn't make me think less of the Chinese at all. It didn't make me think less of Richard Pryor.
And I suppose you also had an awareness of, okay, if we do this too much, then it's not good for Chinese people, it's not fair on them.
That's exactly the point. There is a happy medium between nothing and everything. Yes. But that is never possible now, to make a graded response. I remember being taught at school that it was said in the 19th century, the whole point of an education is to enable somebody to give consent or dissent to a proposition in graded terms. Now, I think that's a very important idea. And if we could get that back, as well as the idea of listening to one another and being allowed to joke with one another a bit, but let's leave that sticking to the wall because that will never happen anymore. But, being able to have a civil discourse. I mean, civil discourse could avoid so much aggro, so much violence, so much stupid, unnecessary banging together of heads. For example, I don't know if you've ever had couple therapy, but I think that almost everybody should have couple therapy, whether they're in a couple or not. Because in couple therapy, what you do is you get one person talking and the other one sort of says, but hang on, and you say, no, let him or her speak. You'll have your turn in a minute. And you won't be interrupted. So you hear what the person has to say, and then they stop. And then the first thing you say to the other person is, what did you just hear said? And that is so valuable, because very often they go, well, thank you for telling me that, because that's not at all what I was saying. And if people were more willing to do this, the world would be a better and happier place.
It's like the, is it the Socratic method where you have to build up the other person's argument until that person is satisfied?
Yes.
So they say, okay, so what you're saying is this, and you go, no, try again.
Yes.
And you have to keep doing it until they're satisfied, and only then can you engage in the debate.
Yes, that part of it, yes.
I did a lot of therapy over the years, particularly because I spent 6 years in Buenos Aires, which is the world capital of therapy, of therapists.
Okay.
They're very Freudian, which I know is not very in vogue now, I suppose, but it still helps if there's a good therapist, there's someone to talk to. And it was like effectively a free Spanish lesson. Well, it wasn't free, but it was very affordable because there were so many. It was about £10 equivalent per hour or whatever. And my word, did it help me. My word. And I went in going, I don't need any help. And I spent the first few times just telling this poor man about how everyone in my life is to blame for everything that's wrong in my life. And he said to me like 6 months later, when I came to realize that wasn't necessarily the case, he said, it's amazing how many people come in and blame everyone else around them. Yeah. And his job is to very, very subtly start to make you understand that it may well be their fault, it may not be, but you have to accept and choose what you're going to accept and choose what you can't change. And that changed a lot for me, not having that impulse to try and make everybody fit what will make me comfortable.
Absolutely. And one of the misconceptions is that psychiatrists will tell you, oh, it's all the fault of your parents. But a good psychiatrist will never tell you that. A good psychiatrist will say, well, let's not go into blaming your parents. They probably did the best they could. We don't know what their problems were. But whatever the story there, you have to take the situation as you find it now and what you're going to do about it. So take responsibility. And, behind the wish to blame everyone else is the unwillingness to accept responsibility for any of your actions, which of course is absurd. It's treating yourself as a child, whereas, you are an adult and you therefore take responsibilities for the things you say and do. And whatever happens to you, we have this kind of, again, mechanistic view, which is very left-hemispheric. The way I am is because of things that happen to me. This is almost invariable view.
I hate that.
It's so often untrue that it's very rare that it is true. So people can be traumatized by having been through nothing that anyone would recognize as remotely traumatic. Other people can have been through genuinely traumatic things in wars or torture or so on, and pull themselves together, survive, and be tough and get on with it. So I'm not saying there's no such thing as trauma. There clearly is, and I've treated people for it. But I think our tendency to hide behind that is a shame, which weakens us.